I'm Justin Wetherby with Build Ops. Today we're going to be talking about overcoming objections and conquering the no's and close more deals with Woodall. As we kind of get into it, a little bit about my background. My background is from the field, right? I've been a field superintendent, project manager, estimator, but now have been in the construction technology space for about 10 years. And the reason why I like to give my introduction first, before I give Woody's, is because once you hear Woody's experience, you won't care much about mine. So, Woody, with that said, for the folks that don't know you, introduce yourself to the audience if you don't mind.
Sure. My name's Woody Woodall. I served my apprenticeship through Local 602 in Washington, D.C. Was an instructor for our training program there for a couple of years. Got 47 plus years in the industry, served on local boards and national boards. Very proud to have been the national chairman of Mechanical Service Contractors of America and be the recipient of the Spence O'Brien Award. That all being said, ladies and gentlemen, all that means is I'm an old guy. I've been around for a long time, and I've seen a lot of great people run their businesses the right way. Thank goodness I've been able to learn from many of them, not only the things that they did properly, but the things that they probably would have done a little bit differently. And hopefully we can share some of that information, Justin and I, today, as we get into overcoming objections.
Yeah, absolutely. Woody brings up a great point. Between the two of us, we have been in a unique position where we've been boots on the ground for, in my case, hundreds. In Woody's cases, thousands of contractors, getting a lot of feedback. And really that's the goal here today, is to share what we've seen with the larger group. Also take some feedback from you. Rachel, we really appreciate you reaching out to us in the chat. Anyone else who's got questions or comments as we go through this, again, we want to keep this interactive. So beat that chat up. We'll keep an eye on it. And appreciate any feedback that you have. But Woody, kind of kicking us off, where do objections typically start? Where do they happen?
Well, at the end of the day, we run across several places where we have to overcome objections, and it's not just with customers. Sometimes it's with potential customers. It may be with some of the people that are friendly competitors, whoever it might be. But our initial meeting with our new client, our very first meeting, one of the most important parts of the sales cycle, is an important one. We can find out a lot of great information if we're asking the right questions as salespeople. The rumor mill is always out there. If you've done something right, something wrong, 9 times out of 10, it's going to end up somewhere on the web, and we're going to find out what's going on. Social media, of course, and other field associates, other people that are working in the industry, in the trades, that may have run across a client that may not have always been as happy as they could have been. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, there's an old adage out there. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's the main focus of selling. Let the client know that we care about what their issues are. We're looking to help them with their challenges and day-to-day pain. And that's how we actually get to a point where we can help people handle any of the challenges that they have going on out there. It's an important note that we all sort of focus on. Justin and I have done a few of these sales related webinars. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I hope everybody realizes that we're really not trying to sell anything. We're trying to help people. We're trying to help them through their challenges and help them become better at what they do and help their companies become more profitable and more respected in their industries as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the right mindset to have when you're looking at these objections, is look at it from the mindset of that we're here to solve problems. We're here to educate, and really be that service provider for them. And when you look at it that way, some of the ways to overcome these objections become a little bit more natural, a little bit clearer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As we talked about that initial meeting, that first meeting with the client, is so important, because that's where we really find out what a lot of their challenges are and what they're up against. So if we're prepared with goals and focus on specific issues that we want to try to mitigate or find out about a client, that's when we start talking about those things in these initial meetings. But part of these initial meetings have to be supported by the rest of the team. The team itself has to work on, and we've got the word script in there. And a lot of people are a little nervous about that word. What we're actually talking about is, hopefully we've taken a few bullet points, a few notes, and we have them somewhere so that we can reference back to those points to ask the pertinent questions, to get the kind of information that we need to best understand how to service this particular customer. And at the end of the day, we need to really work on practicing that, not in front of a client, but in front of our teams, in front of our teammates, so that they can give us some critique about how to do things in a better way. The more we practice, the better off we're going to be at what we're trying to get done here. That's for sure.
Yeah, and if you're not comfortable having these talk tracks internally with your team, you're not going to be comfortable having those with customers. So it's real important to be able to take the time and review those processes internally. And what you'll find is you'll learn a lot from your colleagues as well. You'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's great. I never thought of it that way before. And so with that dialogue open, in that collaboration, you get better results.
That's a great point, Justin, because we all have different techniques and styles how we do things, and it's nice to learn from one another. Another place where we run into objections is review sites and social media. Hopefully, somebody in your office is reviewing those sites, is paying attention to social media, because from time to time, there may be a misunderstanding. There could be a problem that we didn't mitigate completely, whatever that might be, that's out there and floating around the social media realm. And if we don't work hard early to mitigate that, get that taken care of, satisfy the client, change somebody's mind, we're going to have a hard time doing any kind of work in whatever specific genre of business that these people are in. So it's important that we make sure that we're reviewing all of that stuff. Somebody in the office should be reviewing it on a regular basis and bringing those challenges to the forefront, so that we can get them taken care of quickly, cleanly, concisely.
Well, and if you ever do run into that poor feedback, typically that's the reason that's coming out in a review or online is because they didn't know who to reach out to at your company to get that issue resolved. And
Yeah.
so, don't look at it as so much a bad review, but more for like a cry for help, right?
Yeah.
This person's having a difficulty for one reason or another. They don't know what direction to turn. And they kind of shouted out, basically they're shouting out their front door for somebody to help them. So a
Yeah.
lot of times there's a mechanism to have them change that. And provided that you could, give them good service and rectify their issue, that bad review a lot of times can be edited and changed into a positive review. And a lot of times that goes further with a prospective customer than even just a good review, because they know if they're ever in trouble that you guys are there to help. So, we want to keep an eye on that feedback.
Yeah, Justin, you're 100% right. It's great for us to be able to show people that we stand behind what we do on a regular basis. And the way we do that is by exactly what Justin said. We make sure that we are monitoring and measuring and making sure that the clients are getting responses, and when they're trying to what we're trying to get accomplished for them and with them. It's an important piece, that's for darn sure. um, our guys in the field, our folks that work in the industry, we hear little scuttlebutt, little rumors, little innuendos from time to time that we may have a client that's not as happy as they should be or would be, or a person that's in our industry or in one of the market sectors that we're trying to we're trying to penetrate, it's important to make sure that we're aware of those things as well and address them as quickly as possible. We we don't want that type of thing floating around. Keep in mind, especially when we're talking about that type of thing, scuttlebutt or whatever you want to call it, we want to make sure we don't shoot the messenger. Some people are just giving us some good information because they are friends with us or they care about us or whatever it may be. We don't want to get upset with people. Objections are not a bad thing. Objections are just the beginning of the sales cycle, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Nicholas brought up a good point, Woody. Yeah, I mean, just kind of almost words to model your business after. Customer experience is everything. Bad experiences will kill your business, so you always want to give a positive experience. So, Nicholas, appreciate your reaching out. Also, for a couple of the other questions, we'll get into some specifics on those likely objections, and we'll kind of play through that. For y'all, so we'll get in there. And if anybody else has had that experience that Woody had just talked about and was able maybe to flip the script, if you could share a brief
Yeah.
explanation of that story, right? Woody and I would love to take a look at it, maybe share it with the team. So look down below in the Zoom controls and look for chat. Click on that, and when you enter that chat, that's just going to me and Woody. So you're not broadcasting that out to everybody. And as you can tell, I'm keeping it fairly anonymous. We'll use first names, but we're not going to tell everybody what company you're with or anything like that. So kind of a more of an anonymous space. So feel free to drop that in and send it over to us. And when we're talking about prepping for those most likely objections, these are things you're going to hear day to day. So Woody, kind of talk about that a little bit for us.
Sure. As we all know, as we've been in the sales business or support business for folks, we know that there are a series of common objections that a lot of clients might throw out at us as we're dealing with new clients or potential clients. The fact of the matter is, one of the ways we can be better prepared for that is by developing a list of common objections that are out there. I call them objection guides. If we can develop those objection guides and come up with some reasonable explanations or answers or some additional questions that we can sort of dig down a little further. A little later, Justin and I are going to do a little role playing as far as overcoming objections. And so you'll see how we ask each other questions to try to understand best to how to do things. It's much better to practice these types of things, overcoming these objections with our teammates and share that information, and so that everybody's on the same page and everybody knows, hey, listen, for our company, these are some of the things that we're trying to make sure that we take care of for our clients, and this is the way that we're going to overcome these specific objections. Develop those answers so that you're able to mitigate those concerns as quickly as possible and as simply as possible. A lot of times when objections are thrown out, it's sort of a generic thing. And so we have to ask more questions to really drill down to see where the client's coming from and better understand how we can move forward going from there.
Yeah, and that's, I think, coming up with a playbook on how to address those, and we'll get into some specifics. But to your point, you got to expand on it, right? You got to go beyond that initial objection because that isn't the true issue, right?
Right,
There,
right.
it's and you guys throw in some of those common objections in the chat. We've got a couple in here already, but we'll be reviewing those there in a little bit. So we'd love to hear those. Go ahead and throw those in here. But the key is to hear that objection and be able to find really where that pain is coming from.
Right. And our challenge as the lead or the person who is in reaching out or trying to bring this client into our world is we need to really go beyond the objections. We need to really ask some additional questions so that we can really understand where the client's coming from. It could have been a past experience that didn't bode well for them with another contractor, could be something that we had done, or he had heard that we had done, moving forward. So we have to ask those additional questions, and that's part of having that objection guide. Gives us an opportunity to list some of those additional questions, to get some of that additional information that could help us help the client understand. The big part of it, we have to make sure that the discussion is pleasant and friendly. Don't take umbrage about what they have said or what they have heard. We don't want to make it an argument. We're just trying to understand best where they're coming from. And if there's a problem that we had or have, we need to make sure that we address that in a timely fashion, and make sure that the client knows that we're going to address that in a timely fashion. Because if we don't do that, we're going to be known as people that really don't stand by what we want to get done. If the issue is something that you have reviewed, or you've gotten the additional information, make sure that follow-up is prompt back to the client, but not just to the client, to the entire team. When it comes to bringing new clients on board or overcoming objections, that's a team event. It's not just the salesman's responsibility. Everybody needs to be aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and what's important to the client, and how we were able to overcome an objection one way or another.
And I think that brings up a theme that we've been talking about over and over again, and it's something that needs to be called out directly, right? You can't put folks on an island, right? You need to be able to work as a team, and part of working as a team is Woody has mentioned a couple times now, is role playing. So we can't preach something without practicing it ourselves. So Woody and I are setting up something that you should be doing with your team, which is going to be some role playing. Now, to keep this authentic, we have not rehearsed this one bit, right? And this is kind of, we're taking these as they come in, and also we're looking at some of the objections that you guys had put into the chat. So, being as disagreeable as I am and as friendly as Woody is, I'm going to be the disagreeable customer. Woody is going to be the friendly service provider. And to kind of set the stage here a little bit, we want to kind of take these in pieces and then dive down and kind of understand them. So, a common objection that I have as a customer that's very generic and doesn't really speak to the root cause of any issue that I might be having is, Woody's provided me with an estimate. He's followed up. He's doing all the steps that he's supposed to be doing. And, hey, Woody, essentially the price is too high. This is too expensive. My cousin can do it cheaper, right? I almost spit my coffee out. Ellison said my cousin Vinny can do this way cheaper. So you guys, don't be too funny in the chat here, because I might break character. But, sorry, Woody, the price is too high.
Well, Justin, I appreciate that feedback. We always want to make sure that we're fair with our pricing and focused on the value our services bring. Do you mind if I ask a couple of questions so I can better understand where your position with our pricing is?
Yeah, please do.
So what are you basing the price, the fact that you feel that our pricing is too high? What is that based on? Is that compared to other prices, or have you gotten additional prices for this particular work?
So, I mean, this is a great question, because what Woody's doing to me is he's making me verbalize sort of my internal buying process and reveal to Woody what my buying process has been so far, and maybe what it looks like going forward. So Woody, to your question, I got a bid from my cousin's company. He says he can do it quicker. He's just getting started. So
Yeah.
that I was comparing your price to his price, and your price is just a little bit higher there.
Okay, I appreciate that. And you know what? I'm sure he's a qualified guy and can do a great job for you. The thing that's important to keep in mind, Justin, as you're going through this process, is two things. Number one, the value that each company brings, but also the resources that each company brings. We're a company, we've got 20 trucks on the road. We're able to respond pretty quickly to any issues and problems that you might have. As far as pricing is concerned, we've never considered ourselves a low price contractor. We focus on value. we believe that we offer and provide the best value the in this area, and I'm hoping that we can show you what we mean by that value. I'd be happy to get for you, Justin, some testimonies from some of our clients in the past that had the same concerns that you might have, that the price might be a little bit high, and help you understand the challenge, not the challenge, but some of the experiences that they've had and how it's worked for them.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was a great response, and we're also getting some good ones from the team out there as well, from the attendees.
Great.
So, Chris, I think brings up a great point when we're talking about price and the price being too high. One thing we want to take a look at is the scope of work. Would he talk a little bit of difference, when we're looking at pricing, how the scope of work can affect, my price versus your price if they're not the same?
Sure, and it depends on what kind of sale you're trying to make. So if it's a project type job, number one, what manufacturer is the competition using versus what we're using?
Yep,
Number
apples to
two,
apples. Yep.
yeah. Number two, how do they plan on doing this particular work? We may have planned on doing the work on a weekend so we don't disrupt the client's business on a regular basis. So it's important for us to make sure that we understand that we are looking apples to apples as far as compared. That's a great point as far as scope is concerned. If it's planned maintenance, I think that's even a better one because
Yep.
what I always like to do with planned maintenance is I offer to the client, hey, Mr. Customer, I would be happy to share with you what my hours are, what I estimated it would take to do the planned maintenance in your building on a quarterly basis or monthly basis or whatever it may be. I would challenge you to ask my competition to do the same thing. And let's compare the two to see who is actually offering you the best value.
Yeah, agreed. Because too often you're never comparing apples to apples when you're getting a big price discrepancy.
Right,
And then also, the level of service after the sale,
right,
a lot of times is another way you can drive value, to get those higher prices. Because, Woody, I know you got a great saying, but a price is only a problem in the absence of value as
right,
well. So,
right,
number one, we want to get down to the brass tacks, make sure we're comparing to apples. But two, we do not want to be the cheapest bid on the street. That's
that's right.
not a great way to put a lot of confidence in the rest of the market, because you want to come in and make sure that you're getting the value back from the customer that you're going to be given to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? There's an old saying, what is it? It's like you can have fast, cheap, or reliable, but you can't have all three. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Good deal. Yeah, we get a lot of good stuff. Nicholas mentioned, quality work isn't cheap work, and cheap isn't quality, right? That's some basic stuff there. And being able to turn around, getting parts turned around, having that level of support, that's something that Helen had brought up here. Oh, one thing that we get a lot from folks is, hey, we're going to purchase our own equipment.
Yeah.
Woody, I was on site with a contractor. This is something that Rich had brought up here in the chat, but I was on site with a contractor yesterday here in the Southern California area. And one of the objections, or they didn't bring it up as an objection, but what they brought it up as a pain point. Let's take a mechanical contractor, for example. When you hear that the owner is going to be buying their own equipment, that is something that people will do to try to shave a couple points off, but they're
Sure.
losing a lot of value that we could provide as mechanical contractors there, and also kind of creates a scheduling nightmare. What's sort of been your experience with folks, buying their own equipment
Yeah.
and trying to save the cost there?
It's becoming more and more prevalent in the mechanical industry, certainly. Um, but a couple of concerns as a contractor are this. Number one, when we when we purchase the equipment, we also purchase all of the warranty issues and all of those types of things. And we stand behind that piece of equipment, no matter what it is. And so because we are standing behind the warranty problems or the warranty issue, if there is a problem, and if the customer has purchased the equipment themselves, now they've got to reach out to the factory. The factory comes back in. Now they say you could get into a bit of a match between the contractor and the end user and the manufacturer as far as how do you handle the warranty issues and things like that. And also because the client has decided to purchase their own equipment, we really, at that point, we really don't have any warranty issues. I mean, we don't have any, it's not our issue one way or another. It's theirs because they purchased the equipment.
Yeah, right. There's there's only one throat to choke, right? When the mechanical contractor is furnishing the equipment, there's not this handoff of responsibility, right?
That's right.
Well, hey, that's a problem with the manufacturer. Y'all bought the equipment, you figure that out, right? So,
Right.
you get
Right.
a lot of value with putting those two together. So, another typical objection that we hear is, hey, are you big enough, are you capable of handling my work? So, Woody's come to me, he's got a proposal, I like the proposal, but Woody, do you got enough bodies to make sure that I'm being taken care of, service properly?
Sure. And the way you would respond to something like that is, thanks for the feedback. Last thing we would ever want to do is set ourselves up and you up for failure. Can you share just exactly what brought you to this conclusion that we don't have the resources to handle everything, Justin?
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times that's not going to be based on anything but um,
Just a
maybe
feeling.
something that they heard, feeling a little tingle that they had in their toe,
Right.
or
Right.
maybe something that they heard, at the coffee shop, or
Right.
maybe they saw one of the trucks driving by. So, I think it's on the contractor to make sure that we're giving them that reassurance, letting them know, what we stand for as a business,
Right.
what our track record has been, um, to kind of overcome that objection, because it'll never be based in fact, right?
Right.
And when
Right.
you ask me, Woody, like, what's that based on? Rarely are they going to have some side of inside intel that told them, how much equipment each of your trucks are doing,
Right.
in on an annual basis, right? They're not going to have a lot of that in none of that's going to be based in reality. So
Right.
you need to go ahead and bring them into the real world and let them know what sort of level of service that y'all offer.
And we need to be able to share, and if we as salespeople that are out in front of the client on a regular basis, we need to know a couple of things. Number one, what is the value proposition that our company brings to the table every single time? Number two, what sort of resources do we have? Hey, listen, we not only have 10 trucks or 20 trucks or whatever it might be, but we also have a backup of another 20 installation guys that can jump in and help out as needed as we move forward. And on top of that, our people are factory trained in XYZ pieces of equipment. We're able to handle most issues, you know, uh, with no problem whatsoever. So it's important that we are prepared for this type of a objection, and that's where practicing and understanding why it's important to practice, because if we practice this type of objection, then we're going to be able to overcome, or not necessarily overcome, but at least ease the client's mind a little bit.
Well, it kind of it rolled right into the next talking point, Woody. So we kind of almost got a two for one here, which is, that first objection solved by this next, point here, which is understand your value proposition.
Right, right. And when that question comes up, with no hesitation whatsoever, we should be able to stand up and tell them what our value proposition is every single time. And we need to make sure that the client knows that this value proposition doesn't just happen once in a while, but it happens all of the time. And this is where, Justin, when we were talking about the whole team concept, that's where this team concept really comes about, because as far as salespeople are concerned, we're telling them about our great mechanics, our great operations, our great tools that our companies have given us to be able to track and understand what the client's challenges are, know what we're doing on a regular basis, and how we're helping them to get things mitigated and taken care of in their building seamlessly. And the way we do that is by, again, practicing, making sure that we have all of the answers that for objections that might have come along. That objection guide, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, it's worth its weight in gold if you take the time to develop it and develop it properly. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't take anything away from today except the fact that you need to go back in your own team, right, and put together objections with your team. Attending a webinar, hopefully can get the sort of juices flowing and get the passion for the project. But essentially, y'all are going to have to go back into your shops and take a look at those objections that you hear. One thing that Stacy asked about, this is something that we run into on the build ops side every single day. You should have part of your value proposition should have a list of referenceable customers. And so Stacy had asked, would you bring up prior jobs of similar size, et cetera? Yeah, you should have a list, a vetted list that you've gotten the okay from the owner or whomever manages the facility, who could actually be a reference for you. And if you all do great work, getting those references is easy. Now, I hate to bring it back onto the build ops side, but that's something we deal with every single day. Anybody who's evaluating our software, the first thing not the first thing, but like when they're ready to make a decision, the next logical step they all ask is, can we talk to somebody using the software today? And our answer is absolutely yes, you can, because we have such a large install base of satisfied customers, and we have referenceable customers that we can match you up with similar sizes, scopes, etc. And you should be doing the same thing with your business. Make sure you're leveraging your existing install base to be your champions for your new customers, because nobody sells the product better, your services, your installations, better than your existing customers. What's your experience kind of with that have been?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, what we've done in the past is we actually keep files, records of clients that have been extremely happy about all sorts of work that we've done. And so if we're changing out cooling towers, we've got cooling towers clients that we worked with, taken care of over a weekend, quick turnarounds. We've got pictures before and after. All of those type things go a long, long way to explaining to the client that, hey, listen, our value proposition, you see, this is our value proposition in action. This is what actually happens when you bring us on board to do your work for you. And to be able to have that and to be able to get that back to the client in a timely fashion, it's just overwhelming for some of them, because there's a lot of people that don't have that type of information and haven't got the capability of tracking their successes over a long period of time. So it's a tremendous tool to use if you can.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we provide some great insight for folks to be able to track those referenceable customers, be able to visualize, where their outstanding opportunities are, and really drive that back in a way that's meaningful. Because, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And if we're talking about our, referenceable customers, we need to know who we can reference, and essentially when we can go ahead and reference them. So having a database, what he said, a file, a lot of times that's where it's living today. It's on paper, right? It's hard to find, it's hard to quantify. So using a system like BuildOps to help track those, and be able to flag those referenceable customers, even though we're satisfying them on the operations side, that can then be a resource back to the sales team to increase their sales footprint.
Absolutely.
Another point that was brought up was the kind of standard, hey, we're happy with our current provider. Most of the time when you're selling, you're not selling against, you shouldn't think of it against like selling against, company A versus company B. Typically what you're selling against is you're selling against the status quo. That's what it is. Like even in our business, our business is pen and paper. Your business is their current provider, or maybe they don't have a provider, or they're not under contract. Whatever it is, it's typically the status quo that you're trying to sell against.
Yeah. So this is probably of all of the objections that are out there, I've probably heard this more than any of the others, Justin. And when I hear this, I really look forward to answering these types of questions, because if I were the salesperson selling, that's great to hear. We're always looking for ways to get better ourselves. Would you mind sharing with me just a little bit of information about your existing provider? Could you tell me a couple of things that they do great? And when the client comes back and lists a couple of things that they do great, you go, man, that's amazing. That's so cool the way they are able to take care of you in that way. Uh, could, in the same manner, could you tell me just one thing that maybe they don't hit the mark completely on? And once they give you that one little mark, now you got the door open just a little bit so that you can start understanding more and more about how that particular challenge might be. For example, the client might say, well, the only thing that really isn't great is they don't bill as quickly as I'd like them to. And then you as the salesperson might come back, oh yeah, but a late bill doesn't affect you that much. And the client would probably come back and say, well, hell yeah, it affects me, because if I don't get my invoices paid for this month, that means I have to appropriate more money for the next month because you sent the bill in late, and it affects me as far as my monthly tracking and all of this other good stuff. That's where you start to really get into the issue. People buy, you know, they're looking to buy on what they're buying for a client. They're looking for a support mechanism that will help them mitigate their issues. And if that's an issue for a client, we have to make sure we're able to take care of those issues. And that gives us a chance to talk about what we do and how we do things differently than their existing provider. And maybe that might be enough to open the door a little bit to allow you to offer some pricing for some future work.
Yeah, and you know what? One thing that a lot of providers struggle with that you'll probably hear a lot kind of as you're diving in and figuring out where there's opportunities. Um, one thing that a lot of those providers aren't doing well is providing their customer with sort of details about their equipment and making recommendations. And one thing that BuildOps helps with a ton is with that asset tracking. So on any given site location, we can track all the different pieces of equipment, asset systems, whatever it happens to be that we want to be able to track that service history around, so that we can now start running reports, providing those reports to our customers about, hey, this equipment, you have a budget to replace equipment. These are the pieces of equipment you should be replacing. And whether they've told you they had a budget or not, you can go ahead and make that recommendation to them. That, hey, if you do have budget, these are the pieces of equipment that you look for. And
Right.
a lot of times they'll be like, oh, well, we didn't plan on that, but we're having budget meetings next week, so we'll go ahead and get that in there.
Justin, if we're doing our job on a regular basis as a sales rep for our companies, we're having these yearly meetings with our clients to talk about what we've done and how we've done it, to make sure that they understand the value that we're bringing every single time. And by doing that, we're helping them understand that, hey, you do have some equipment that may be faulty, and by the way, we can help you with pricing for next year's budget. When they decide to do that work for next year, who's the person they're probably going to call? They're going to call us, because we're the ones that help them provide the budget for it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And then, we want to also talk about, based on our conversations today and the great feedback that we've gotten from the attendees, as an organization, let's take some of this information and make it actionable, right? Let's get something done. So let's kind of go through some of those next steps, Woody, and sort of set up a plan, for the team.
Sure. So uh, as as we turn this webinar off and move on and try to get some work done, um, we need to start identifying objections as a team, things that we're running across from time to time. We have to be able to come up with 3 reasonable responses. In many cases, I've seen objection guides, Justin, where people will have 10, 12, 13, 15 different answers to a specific objection, depending on where the client's coming from. So that's the first thing, is start to develop that objection guide, and
Mhm.
then help your teams get comfortable talking and resolving those issues. Help them understand that an objection is not a dig about your company. It's just a challenge right now in the client's mind, and we need to just resolve that challenge one way or another. We need to make sure that we're monitoring our company and reviewing all of the social media sites. We're sort of keeping our ear to the railroad track to hear if we messed up somewhere, if there's some scuttlebutt out there that we need to be aware of. And we all have to, and I'm sure most of us already have it, but if we don't have a value proposition in writing, something that we can share with the client that helps them see that every single time they deal with us with a problem, this is how we get it taken care of, and this is how we uh, overcome these challenges. And we've said it a couple of times already. Practice makes perfect. Practice overcoming those objections. I can't tell you how many times I was driving down the road talking to myself, trying to overcome objections. People come up, they must have said, "Man, that guy must have been smoking something over there. He's crazy." Because I'm just my hands are flying and everything else, and I'm just trying to overcome, get ready for a specific meeting and overcome what I think might be some objections coming down the line.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I see missed most often in people's plan, right? They put together a good plan, they'll put together the documentation, but then we're not actually practicing that plan,
Right,
right? And it's,
right.
if you want to perform on game day, you better put your reps in during practice. And let's talk a little more and dive a little bit deeper into these next couple slides here as far as addressing objections and sharing the load.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if a client has an objection about something we've offer or something we are offering, they have an objection to the entire team. And because of that, we have to bring the entire team in and make sure that they're part of those solutions. We have to make sure that they are able to put their 2 cents in so that we can overcome objections from 360 degrees. No matter what the client is talking about. At every sales meeting, at all hands meetings, operational meetings, we should be talking about overcoming objections, or, hey, have you heard any good objections lately? Hey, this is a new one we've never seen. Let's come up with some answers to it right now. Make sure that you have the tools that your team needs to provide that legendary service. I'm not just talking about good or great. I'm talking about legendary service. Every single time we work with a client or a potential client, we have to have those state-of-the-art services that build ops and some of our other partners help us do. And so it's important that we are working as a team to get all of those things taken care of. So as we move forward, we want to make sure that we're supporting our team with everything that they need. Overcoming objections certainly is a big part of it, but to be able to pull data in quickly, to be able to get things at the drop of a hat, or information at the drop of a hat for a client so that they can be more at ease as to what we're doing or what we could be doing for them. And those state-of-the-art tools, if you haven't got those, if you're not comfortable with those tools, if you don't have what it takes to take care of your people so that they can do your bidding, make sure that you look into that in some way, shape, or form. If you give your teams the time and help them and learn how to engage and practice what they're doing, I'm telling you, it's going to come back to you tenfold. It's the little things that make the huge difference. And the little things are what we as a team work on, how we work as a team. Be willing to do those little things moving forward and practice the things that we preach, especially our value proposition and all of those types of things. We're going to be successful as hell. It's going to be a great year for us. That's for sure.
Yeah, and one way to kind of ensure that the team is working together is to your point, you got to give them tools to be able to collaborate. What happens too often is this information, it's kind of like tribal knowledge, right? And it's always in some paper folder somewhere or in some folder on somebody's computer, and they kick their laptop off their desk and that stuff's gone forever. So a lot of what I've been hearing, Woody, out there is, giving some visibility sort of across the board, right? So, in this example, a visibility of the opportunities that we're working, understanding what their due dates are, when they need to be out. Are we waiting on some sort of interim step, like for, in this example, like vendor pricing or any of the other steps that kind of come along in that process, so that everybody's on the same page and we can coordinate amongst our team. And then also being able, setting goals is great, but you also need to be able to sort of track your progress against those goals. So
That's right.
BuildOps offers a ton of reporting, customized, basically a business analytics tool built right into the software. And I think it kind of resonates with some of the stuff that we were just talking about.
Right, right. And the little things, I noticed that we had one person in the chat ask what some of those little things are. We are what we focus on and measure. And those little things are things like talking about objections in meetings, making sure we've developed that value proposition, following up with one another. How are things going? Is there anything I can do to support you or help you? And it's not just manager to salesperson, or it's not just operations to sales manager. It's all of us together. Hey, how's it going? What can I do to help? Is there anything I can do to make your job easier? If we can do that together as a team, those little things that we just we're talking about a few of them. Those little things make a huge difference, not just with the clients, but with our people as well. Because now all of a sudden, our whole team is talking, working together. We're really focusing on what we've done in the past and what we're doing in the future, and new things we've come across. It's amazing how it can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely, Woody. It is those little things, and kind of talking about the little things and some of the stuff that we're seeing here in the chat. Nicholas mentions that he just loves your passion, and I know Woody's passion comes from a place of understanding, right? Of work. I've done this stuff himself, and one thing that I want to try to push out there, and I'd love to hear feedback in the chat, is do we need to get Woody his own monthly podcast, right? We were talking about it earlier, Woody. I told you I'd get some support behind it. So guys, let's. I'm one of those people who thinks Woody needs his own podcast. I love listening to him. I love the passion. It comes through in everything that he speaks about, and being in a unique position to have as much experience as he has in as many different companies, and working with as many different folks as he has, I think is something that's truly powerful. So with that said, Woody, anything else you kind of want to leave the team with, if as we kind of wrap up here?
Well, just last but certainly not least, everything that we do in the service realm, whether it's mechanical, electrical, whatever, lawn care, it doesn't matter. We have to be aware that we're creating moments, opportunities for our clients to remember for a long, long time, and we're creating moments for everybody to understand. And the way we try to do that, and the way we are going to get that done, is being there and being focused on those moments and being aware of how those moments really influence people and how they actually get things taken care of on a regular basis. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for spending some time with Justin and I.